The summer is a time for all 30 NBA teams to try their best to get better, and the goal is to make as many moves as possible to accomplish that goal. Some teams are obviously closer to being where they want to be than others, so the amount of work needed to put in varies as well, but ultimately everybody has the opportunity to get things done if they're smart about it. Some teams get proactive and make sure that they entered the new season more prepared than they were the year prior, while others struggle to find the right ways to address their issues, and this brings us to today's video. Today we'll be discussing the 5 NBA teams that have improved the most this offseason. These are the groups ready to take the biggest leaps based on the trades, free agency signings, and draft selections made so far. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first team we'll be discussing today that is amongst those that have improved the most this offseason is the Atlanta Hawks. I've brought this up a few times in prior videos already, but I remain highly impressed with the way that the Hawks went about their offseason. This was a team that, for about 4 years, was continually trending in the wrong direction, going from a conference finals team to a group stuck in limbo hovering in the realm of mediocrity. If they didn't act quickly, they were at risk of losing franchise cornerstone Trae Young and having to start over again, but they've checked a lot of boxes on their to-do list this summer to make things right. Last year, they finished yet another uninspiring campaign with a record of 40-42, missing out on the playoffs after getting bounced in the play-in tournament. But the difference was that they actually had promising younger players starting to blossom, and a base for a better future was being established through players like Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson taking their games to another level. This summer, the Hawks knew that they needed to strike while the iron was hot and carry this momentum forward, and they did exactly that by addressing some of their biggest weaknesses. The Hawks were ranked in the bottom half of the league overall on offense and in three-point shooting last year, so finding more scoring outlets that can space the floor and benefit from Trae Young's elite passing talent was crucial, and they hit a few home runs there. Trading for Kristaps Porzingis was an absolute steal, only having to give away a second-round pick, Terrence Mann, and George Niang for him in a trade, making it the perfect buy low opportunity. Porzingis has been dealing with an illness that hampered his play to end last season, and obviously that does need to be taken into account, but if he can fully recover from it, he's a 20-plus point scoring 7'3", volume 3-point shooter who will run an unstoppable pick and pop with Trae Young. The Hawks also bolstered their backcourt with players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard, who will both directly contribute to improving the team's 3-point shooting, and now this is a team with strong depth at pretty much every position. Asa Newell is also coming in as a rookie, ready to dominate on the glass and defend hard from day one. Zachary Reese-Shea seems primed for a year 2 leap. Onyeka Okongwu finally gets to be the team's starting center after developing behind Clint Capella for years, and guys like Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson will be causing havoc on defense as they grow on offense too. At full strength, the Hawks can absolutely compete with anybody in the Eastern Conference. They just need to make sure they can actually stay healthy first. The next team that is amongst those that have improved the most this offseason is the Houston Rockets. The Rockets are one of the most obvious inclusions in today's video because they started the summer off with a blockbuster trade that let the basketball world know they mean business. After breaking out as the 2 seed in the Western Conference last year before ultimately being sent home in the first round of the playoffs, they proved they were close to joining that top tier of contenders, but were missing a very important piece: a true number 1 go-to scoring option that can lead the offense. The Rockets were a dominant defensive team last year, but their offense ranked much closer to the middle of the pack, and they were also one of the worst half-court offenses of those that made the playoffs. The Rockets were a strength in numbers type of team, with nobody really separating themselves from the rest scoring the ball, and Jalen Green of all people was leading the team in points per game, which, to put it simply, is a red flag for a team wanting to win at the highest level. Jalen Green has not proven at any point in his career that he can be a consistent high-level scorer, and his showing in the playoffs summarized his career with one explosive outing scoring the ball, followed by a lot of struggle and questionable shot quality. The Rockets used him and Dillon Brooks to headline a trade package that brought in Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns, and now this group has a future Hall of Famer who still scores a ridiculously efficient 27 points per game, leading the way. They also reunited with Clint Capella to provide some veteran depth behind rising star Alperen Şengün at center. They signed Dorian Finney-Smith, who has been one of the better 3-and-D forwards over the last few years, and Josh Okogie is a sneakily interesting signing to bolster the backcourt with some more lockdown defense. So all in all, the Rockets still have a dominant defense. They now have one of the best scorers in the game to help propel their offense though, and they're as deep as anybody else at the top of the standings. The next team amongst those that have improved the most this offseason is the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers, like the Rockets, have easily been the biggest splashers of the summer, making headlines for countless big moves that actually have real purpose and conviction. The Clippers overachieved quite a bit last season after entering the year with a lot of people doubting their chances to make the playoffs due to Kawhi Leonard's injuries and the departure of Paul George, but so far the post-PG era is going quite well, and this summer they retooled with the intention of joining the top tier of contenders in the West. When the Clippers traded away Norman Powell, there were some scratching their heads amongst fans, but as things progressed, all of their plans started to fall into place, and things made a lot more sense. Since then, the Clippers have been able to add Bradley Beal on a near minimum contract after he was bought out by the Phoenix Suns. They've reunited with Chris Paul to have him end his career in the place where he once rejuvenated this lowly franchise in his prime. And they signed Brook Lopez to back up Ivica Zubac, ensuring that they always have strong rim protection on the court. Plus, they even managed to improve their power forward position by acquiring John Collins from the Utah Jazz as a part of that Norman Powell trade. Bradley Beal's reputation has taken a big hit because he wasn't able to come close to living up to the Supermax contract that he was signed to previously, but he immediately becomes an incredible value for the Clippers, being signed for just $5 million per year. Plus, Chris Paul may not be the player that he once was, obviously, but if there's one thing he still does at a high level, it is playmake, having just averaged about 7 assists per game, and he can run the show flawlessly when James Harden's on the bench. A starting lineup of James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, and Ivica Zubac is really a good starting lineup that matches up with anybody in the NBA right now, and with Chris Paul, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., Nico Batum, and Brook Lopez all ready to go off of their bench, there isn't a box this team doesn't check when they're healthy. But like the Hawks, staying healthy is the part that has proven to be difficult at times for some of their players. The next team that is amongst those that improved the most this offseason is the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets had officially reached a crossroads after being eliminated from the playoffs by the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were out of money to spend, they had a very few expendable and tradable assets in their rotation, and they also didn't have a single draft pick at their disposal to use this year. If they really wanted to improve, there was only one way they were going to accomplish that, and that is by trading away Michael Porter Jr. and his max contract. MPJ has not come anywhere close to performing like a max player since signing that contract, and it has been clogging up their payroll ever since. When the Nuggets got the Nets on board with taking him in, it set them free and opened up the floodgates for even more strong moves to flow in. For starters, they traded MPJ for Cam Johnson, which is arguably an upgrade for half the price. Johnson is coming off of the best year of his career, scoring 19 points per game, shooting the ball 48% from the field and 39% from three, with a reputation as a fantastic shooter that can threaten defenses both spotting up and on the move. He's also a far more willing passer and more of a team player than Michael Porter Jr. has ever been, so he'll be a seamless fit next to Nikola Jokic in this lineup. The Nuggets also had one of the worst bench units in the league last year, which, after the summer they've had now, will no longer be the case next season. They signed Tim Hardaway Jr. away from the Pistons, bringing in even more volume shooting to the rotation. They reunited with Bruce Brown, who had his best season of his career in Denver in 2023 when they won the title, and they also acquired Jonas Valanciunas, who should be the best backup center to Jokic that they've had in years. With the group they now now have. Jamal Murray won't be under nearly as much pressure to carry the ball handling load. They have genuinely reliable wing depth that can give their main guys more rest in the playoffs, and they're all selfless off-ball players that will benefit from playing next to the playmaking talent of Nikola Jokic, so they're now right back in the mix at the top of the Western Conference. And finally, the last team we'll be discussing that has improved more than anyone else is the Orlando Magic. The Magic, like the Rockets, were a young team on the rise, with their success stemming from their dominant defense that they've built. The offensive side of the ball was a different story though. 2 years in a row now, the Magic have had the worst ranked offense amongst the teams that have made the playoffs, and their complete lack of spacing and their lack of playmaking from the point guard position were big reasons why. The Magic were also the worst ranked three-point shooting team in the entire NBA last year, so as you can already guess, it's hard to keep up in today's NBA like that when shooting is more important than ever. The Magic started their summer off by addressing exactly that when they traded for Desmond Bane, who has been developing into a borderline all-star caliber shooting guard, scoring about 20 points per game for 3 years in a row now, shooting a high volume of threes, and making them at a 41% clip for his career. He's replacing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in their lineup, who just had the worst shooting season of his career, and Bane provides way more creation on the ball, so not only will Desmond Bane help open things up for guys like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, but he'll also be drawing the other team's third best perimeter defender, taking advantage of mismatches. Along with that, the Magic also brought in Tyus Jones on a 1-year contract to give this group an actual floor general type of point guard in the rotation. Jalen Suggs will be the team's starting point guard, but Suggs has yet to prove he can actually be a consistent playmaker on the offensive end, while also struggling a bit with efficiency. His calling card is more on the defensive side, so Jones and his 41% shooting from 3, and his 7 assists per game as a player who really plays completely selflessly within the flow of the offense, will be a very useful change of pace. Throw in rookie Jace Richardson, who was drafted pretty much entirely for his creativity as a scoring talent, and the Magic have made it clear that they knew what their weaknesses were and addressed them head on. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these teams going into next season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.